And welcome to this morning's edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForrest. Took a little busman's holiday yesterday, President's Day, so happy to be back with you today. Scotty M scheduled to join us here, so we'll pick his brain for some college basketball games as well. And speaking of burying your bookie, I kind of was involved. I don't know. I guess you would call it somewhat of a tribute funeral of sorts over the weekend, and it involved degenerate gambling. I get a call from a very neurotic friend of mine, a guy that we refer to as Big Al, even though he's not that big, and his name actually isn't Al. No, it is Big Al, well-known neurotic around the racetracks for many, many years, and a decent handicapper also. He has a pretty good opinion. Anyway, calls me, he doesn't have a car, which should come as no surprise to anybody that gambles a lot. And he says he doesn't need one, but is always looking for rides. Says he needs a ride to Gulfstream Park. He knows I go down there every Friday to do a different podcast, and they've been longtime sponsors of mine over the many years I've been in the South Florida area, going all the way back to the very beginning. So 40 some odd year relationship with the place. And he tells me, and I thought he was talking about some distant cousin or something. He tells me that he needs to get down there so he can spread the ashes of a person who had been deceased, I want to say, for a couple of months already. But his dying request was to have his ashes spread at the finish line at Gulfstream Park. And I'm thinking, well, that's really an extrapolation on a theme that I've had forever, which is that I would like my ashes spread at the 16th pole at Gulfstream Park because that's where all my horses died. So I could honor the request and respect it a great deal. It sounded like something I would want for myself. So I said, oh, okay, I'll give you a ride down there. And I didn't realize how crazy this was going to get. It almost became like a scene out of The Sopranos or Pulp Fiction where we were kind of carrying a dead body in the trunk of the car. As we end up, he's talking the whole time. And I realize there's a law in the state of Florida. I don't know, maybe this is applicable and is the case all around the country, that it's illegal to spread a person's ashes somewhere. Now, if you're being discreet about it and kind of doing it like in Shawshank Redemption, where Andy Dufresne is dropping like a couple of granules of the cement that he's cutting up in the yard as he's walking around in the 45 minutes that he has outside, and every day he puts a little piece out there. And if you're doing that, maybe nobody notices. You would think too that most people aren't paying attention to what anybody else is doing. So the one thing you wanted to do was use a little indiscretion and not make it so obvious that we were spreading the ashes of somebody. Now I know this from my long-term relationship with the people at Gulfstream Park, that they have cameras everywhere, and especially if you were talking about on the finish line. I told Big Al, I had to distance myself from the actual dispensing and distribution of the ashes of his, what I thought was his uncle, because I can't be on the cameras there doing something that is against the law. It just wouldn't look good for my business relationship with these guys. And they're sitting on enough of my money that I need them to pay me to do certain things so I can feel a little better about all of the horses that have been short over the years that I bet there. Anyway, make a long story short, he gets there, and you couldn't have been any more obvious that he was doing something. It almost looked like he was planning a bomb. As he gets out of the car, and sometimes he used to like maybe change clothes behind the car or whatever, and then get back in, but you were sort of being blocked from sight by the car. In this case, he's in full view of a security guy as he takes the box of ashes out, and all of a sudden they go flying all over the fucking parking lot. And he was able to preserve just enough to get a few at the top of the stretch. But we couldn't have looked like any bigger clowns. It literally looked like we were botching the burial of somebody, or we're going to have to stab a live guy in the trunk. And then it turns out I knew the guy. When he finally told me who it was, I'm thinking, wait a minute, this is a guy that I used to see at the track all the time. I can't believe he checked out. And here he was, pretty much a stiff in the back seat of my car. But always weird, when you're involved in that sort of episode. And the guy, it's like the guy that's going through security and he's about to get away with like 2 kilos of cocaine. And finally he says, oh, hey, you forgot to look at this. And then he holds up a gun, and then they start going through your bags. And that's it. Here's a guy that never tips his hand and is not going to do something that is so just transparent that you have no choice but to arrest them. Scotty M joins us here on the show. Scotty, how are you, my friend?
What's going on, Defo? I hear you talking a little horse stories again, huh?
Happened that a friend of mine wanted to bury the ashes of a guy that we both ended up knowing um, at Gulfstream Park. So, I mean, it's illegal to do that. And I don't want to be associated with some illegal activity there at the track because they've been backers of mine forever. And he just butchered it. I mean, you couldn't have made it any more obvious. We were doing something that you shouldn't have been doing. And the guy, at least enough of the guy's ashes did get to the top of the stretch so that his wish was honored. But tough to bury a guy these days. It really is, Scotty.
I'll tell you
Even
what.
even when reduced to ash, it's still hard to get rid of the body. That's for sure. Let me tell the people this before we get going with some selections and opinions on a lot of different things. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. They have the largest selection of odds on everything from the NBA, college basketball, the NHL, UFC. BetOnline continues to be your number one source for betting on sports. From every three-pointer to hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. You had to love this, Scotty. I think you're a hockey guy. You said you were making some money on pucks, I think, the last time we spoke here on the show. And it was like the old feud between the Red Wings and the Avalanche. Remember when that was going on?
Oh yeah.
And they would line up, and the ref still had the whistle in his mouth and the puck in his hand, and everybody's throwing the gloves down, and even the goalies are fucking fighting. And I believe at one time, way back in the 50s, that kind of activity was an inspiration for Vince McMahon Sr. And he said, hey, look at this. A fight breaks out where everybody's involved. Let's call it WrestleMania. And it might have been the birth of an idea, but that was great stuff between the USA and Canada. And I think after what was almost an incomprehensible version of the NBA All-Star game where nobody really knew what transpired, the NHL really has stolen the spotlight in figuring out how to have competitive games around a time celebrating what normally would be their All-Star break. And they're getting this compelling action where you almost can't wait for tonight's game between the U.S. and Canada.
I think it's absolutely fantastic. You must have read my mind because I was thinking the most exciting thing this week coming up is going to be that game on Thursday night between Team Canada and the USA. I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to that game, and it's going to be right there in Boston. I mean, what better environment? A hockey town, big time like Boston, having a game like this with the magnitude of a game like this on the line. I mean, it's incredible. I watched that game. I happened to get lucky that I happened to be around, and I turned that game on just as it started. The Canada, excuse me, I keep saying Canada versus USA game, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It reminded me of like the Boston Bruins, Philadelphia Flyers, if you
Yeah.
remember, to jump over the boards in the penalty box and go into the crowd with the fans back in the day. I mean, the hockey was crazy back in the in the '60s and '70s. All hell broke loose. It was fantastic.
Only guy maybe with better hair than you, Scotty, might have been Sanderson. No?
Derek Sanderson,
Yeah.
yeah,
Boston
yeah.
Bruins, he had the hair going. I guess other guys had that working also in hockey, but I don't think anybody did that better than Derek Sanderson. Yeah, you're right. Wild crowds. I mean, who would have anticipated this? Usually, the All Star game is. I mean, it was reduced down to like skills competitions and things like that in recent years. It was always an annuity for the degenerates who were onto it long time back or long ago, where the over was a cinch
Yeah.
in both the NBA and the NHL All Star games. But this has been more than a satisfying and compelling substitute. That's for sure. Did you make any bets on this stuff? Because we
I,
had.
I haven't. I really haven't gotten into it, to be honest. I kind of just enjoying it. I'm enjoying the intensity of it. I mean, you see the intensity level is off the charts with these games, and it just makes it exciting because the leagues have really screwed up these All Star games. The NFL is a joke. I mean, the way they've turned that into a total joke. The NBA the other day, hearing a lot of negative press on it. A lot of the players absolutely thought it was a joke. I mean, so the NBA All-Star game's kind of fallen apart. The NHL All-Star game fell apart for a while as well. Now they put this format together, which is dynamite. I hope the NBA catches on to it and put some type of like
An
U.S.
international tournament.
against international type of All-Star game. That can make it a lot more exciting. It just helps the brand in the long run.
People love that kind of stuff as compared to this half-hearted effort that you see. And I didn't. I can say I saw more of the celebrity All-Star game than I did the actual All-Star game in the NBA, and that's because you're thinking there has to be somebody out here. When you discovered that Justin Timberlake had a little bit of a jumper, you thought, "Wow, that's remarkable." I tell you, he was a hell of a basketball player. I actually used to play some basketball with him when I lived in Los Angeles. And you wouldn't believe this, Scotty M, but had some game, very much like Jaime Jaquez Jr. And actually, Jaquez Jr. is a reasonable facsimile of Tommy Chong, of Cheech and Chong fame, who used to run at the Hollywood Y with a bunch of people on a regular basis. And the guy had a little bit of a game. You would be surprised, but looked like a bunch of stiffs in this Celebrity All-Star game this year. Now that couldn't have had any action on it, could it?
I,
If somebody was taking bets on that, then they
no,
would have to lose their license, you would think.
no, there was probably like player prop kind of stuff. Maybe who would win the MVP or something like that. I mean, I can't see heavy action on that format, to be honest, because it was broken up into four different divisions, four teams. I think 40 points got the job done to move on.
Yeah.
So a whole different. I don't really see how you could gauge in on that type of thing. But maybe player props. Obviously the younger players like the player props and things like that. So that probably got a lot of attention. But as far as the game itself, I mean, with that format, I can't see how much attention was really put on that at all. It's a shame because they used to have the problem with the NBA, they don't seem to take that All Star game so serious. You know what I mean? It's more like a
No, there's no
total,
D whatsoever. Sure.
yeah, total exhibition. They play the D with like 2 minutes left in the game or something. They put on that fake show in the last couple of minutes, but it's just a total exhibition. I mean, it's almost impossible to figure, how to bet those kind of games. It's just a matter of luck at the end. Who's going to pour it on more than the other one.
There will be people. I don't know if you think that they should be Baker acted or deemed to be criminally insane. That will be telling you that they make big scores betting spring training baseball. Have you ever dabbled into that form of degeneracy?
I never went early in baseball. I like to watch baseball for the first like 3 or 4 weeks to see what teams kind of, positioning themselves a little better than others. But baseball, as I was talking to some, friends of mine recently, you got to focus on certain teams and kind of stick with teams that are kind of streaking. I think that's how you can make yourself some good money early in the season. If you're just jumping all over the place, playing this team one day, another team, and you're involved in all the teams, it's going to be very difficult, to really pinpoint. I think you got to kind of get on the gauge of a handful of teams, kind of follow them and see how they're going. That's how you could be going and take advantage of like some of these teams. Like last year, if you bet against the White Sox, what they lose the first 22 games, I think, of the regular season. So you got to kind of pick your spots, look for a couple of teams to jump on, and as they go, you should be going, and that's how you can get off to a good early start with baseball. And I'm looking at that stuff right now. It's way too early. I'll get a better gauge obviously when April starts rolling in. But that's what I look for. I look to get a little bucket of teams, maybe 6 teams or 8 teams out of all of them, and kind of ride with those teams and jump in and jump on those teams and try to catch. If they catch a good run, that's how I could be picking up some units.
Your favorite team, the Miami Marlins, was no, I
Yes.
think you're probably a Red Sox fan, but last year atrocious coming out of the chute, and they were mathematically eliminated from their over/under total somewhere like in July. I mean, it was just an obscenely bad season. I happened to catch a glimpse. You would like to have some hope for your local team going into the year. You mentioned the White Sox. I would imagine I didn't see them do anything particularly awe-inspiring in the offseason to make you believe that they might be better this year. I mean, they can't be any worse. And the Marlins, the same thing, where I'm looking at the owner yesterday, and he looks like a guy that should have like a little pinwheel cap on, doesn't he? This guy, Bruce Sherman. And you're thinking, what possible? And no city is fueled by false hope more than South Florida and Miami and Fort Lauderdale area where we reside.
Yeah.
And yet when you were watching this guy, I mean, even the henchmen in the background were like shaking their heads like that this is going to be abysmal at best. So
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people are onto it now. It would come as a giant surprise if they ended up opening up in any kind of positive fashion. But I mean, that's one of those weird things about being a baseball fan where, I mean, and seldom does this happen. But in this city, unfortunately, it happens a lot of late. And that's where your team has zero hope of doing anything. There's not even anything to latch onto. It's not even like you can get, hey, watch these young guys grow because you know that
Yeah.
it's just a situation that is doomed from the start. They may as well give you a blindfold and a last drag on a cigarette as you start the year.
Yeah, well, the problem with the product down here, it's not a good product. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's not a good product at the end of the day. And seems like every time they get a good player, that player's gone. I mean, they're trading away all their best players, it seems, over the last several years as
Oh,
well.
yes.
It's just not a good situation for the fans. You get a little hope. You got a couple of good ball players on the team, and then all of a sudden, halfway through the season, they're traded away, and it just hasn't been a good situation. We had a couple of championships down here, which was great, but every time they had championships down here, they dismantled the teams immediately. So you really couldn't build the momentum of having a carryover to have a lot of maybe future championships or playoff teams. It just seems like I don't know what the theory is behind it all, but
Poverty.
just yeah, just kind of weird. Dismantling your best players seems like all the time, and dismantling after you win championships, right after you win them. So it's kind of you could scratch your head with the Marlins franchise. To be honest with you, it seems like teams. I'm curious to see how the Mets fare this year with this big signing of Soto. That's going to be interesting with that team and some of their players and pitchers. They could be very interesting. I'm going to watch the Mets early in the season, try to catch a little something with them because they may get off to a good start. And the Yankees, like to see what happens there. Obviously, think the New York teams are going to be very interesting this year.
Yeah, the Yankees did a nice job of pivoting off the loss of Soto there to the Mets.
Yeah,
And when you look at the Mets lineup, it's formidable. So,
yeah the AL East looks interesting. I mean, the Red Sox made a couple of moves as well. I don't know if they're going to have the firepower at the end of the day with their pitching staff, against the Yankees and so forth. But it looks the AL East looks interesting. Obviously, the West looks interesting, and the NL. The Dodgers, I'm curious to see how they fare again. That they're loaded. Tani, he's a two-way player this year. He's going to pitch and hit. So
yes.
that's going to be interesting. He hasn't done that in a little over a year or two. So the Dodgers, listen, they're loaded. If they don't have any injuries, baseball. Remember, 162 games, long season. A lot of shit can happen with players going down. That's going to be the key. Obviously, keeping your good players healthy in a long season is not easy.
Yeah, Dave Roberts. I mean, Julia Roberts could manage that team to a pennant. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
He's,
It's like cruise control, that team. It seems like, every year they just get their 90 wins, 95 wins, whatever. It just seems like it's been going on for many, many years. But they got great talent, and listen, they deserve it. They put together. They're doing totally the opposite of the Marlins. They're putting it all together. They're not breaking it apart. They're trying to put all. And if they lose a piece, they find a way to get a piece. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
not like
it's incredible. Sure.
yeah, it's not like they're giving it all away.
Otani, I mean, hell of a lineup there, and many others that would be coveted by teams all around the league. It almost the imbalance. That's something that you're looking at with essentially no salary cap, but now a willingness to pay a fat luxury tax. But when your worldwide marketing includes Shohei Otani and now this other guy that they just signed from Japan,
Yeah.
you're in pretty good shape. So, yeah, all right. Well, we'll get into baseball throughout the season because during the long hot summer, that's pretty much all the action that you have.
Yeah.
Although you can get into a little bit of golf. It was a wild golf tournament here. A guy named Maverick McNeely is birdieing every hole. Is something like 8 under after 10 holes in the final round. He goes on. He takes a 2-shot lead, only to be passed on the final hole of the tournament by this Ludwig Oberg, who has been touted by many as a possibility to win tournaments. He goes off at mid-range odds usually, Scotty M. I don't know if you're betting a lot of golf, but
I,
you got passed in deep stretch there if you had this McNeely guy who came from the clouds to begin with,
yeah.
and I'm sure it was a fat price. So anybody that got mowed down there by Ludwig Oberg, we certainly sympathize, and we'll be happy to spread your ashes all over the 16th at Torrey Pines where that tournament turned around.
Yeah, the golf. I'll tell you a lot. There's a lot more fanfare with golf with gambling over the recent years. A lot of people into it. They like the odds, especially smaller players, even these younger guys, because they like to they like to bet the individual players. So they're looking to put little money to try to make decent sized money, almost like Daytona the other night. It's crazy. We had a push. We have someone that really knows NASCAR, and we had Cindric and in the last Cindric to win it at 16-1,
Wow.
given to us by this guy that really knows NASCAR really, really well. The last lap, he gets knocked into on the final lap. He's sitting in second spot, could have won the race, and it's just crazy. He got knocked out of it in the final lap of the race, and it was 16-1. We had a shot to.
Wow. Looked like a winner. All of a sudden, he's spinning out of control like
Yep.
Danica Patrick on lap 3.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
crazy. It's crazy, but no, I agree.
I wish you could bet exactas in NASCAR. That would be my game.
It's
But
not.
like it was a horse race. But yeah, I mean, picking a winner, what you get top 5, top 10, all kinds of crazy stuff. I
Yeah.
would imagine if you knew your shit, if you were like a moonshine drinking hillbilly, you would have a pretty good chance to have an edge in something like that. And who cares what you have an edge in? Now, does it matter if you're making money?
No, not at all. It's
Uh,
actually a good thing. That's what I look for. I try to give myself, over the average guy that's doing it, as a hobby, as they call themselves, these guys that are betting. I say, listen, you're putting real money down. I don't know why you're considering it a hobby, but whatever you think, whatever you think, makes sense. Do whatever you think makes sense. But yeah, I'm always looking for an edge, especially on point spreads. I'm looking at these games. I'm creating a number up here, and if I see the number down there that comes out, and I feel I have an advantage based on all the things I'm looking at. That's when I make when I go all in kind of on these games.
all right. All right, let's pick some games for the people here. College basketball, I would imagine, will be the focal point of Scotty M and your appearance here today. And SM picks been hot on college basketball. I watched a little college ball. This Dusty May can really coach Michigan. Wow, you're looking at this guy who was a big white stiff. Vlad Golden, he took from FAU when he took the Michigan job. This guy was a complete putz, a spasticated guy with no rhythm whatsoever. Footwork was atrocious. And now he's just in there banging like he was Zach Edey on the
Yeah,
boards. And a big factor for Michigan. Maybe I don't know if they're a sleeper team for the tournament, but they're ranked like 20th. They had a big win over Ohio State. And I love seeing Danny Hurley look like he's just going to flip out and maybe to be fitted with a jacket that ties in the back. So UConn, I mean, blowing a 7-point lead with 35 seconds to go to Seton Hall. That was a thing of beauty. What's on the slate tonight? Anything we can look at?
yeah, yeah. I got a couple of games I feel comfortable with. I'm looking at the numbers. I'm looking at the matchups. I like Texas A&M. I've been using this team this year and doing really well with them. They're on the road. They're playing against Mississippi State. I had Mississippi State the other day. They caught a nice win on the road against Mississippi. They're not that good at home. They're 8-4 at home, which is not a good record for top 20, 21 in the nation. They're 4-6 in their last 10 games. This A&M team has just been a steady team all season long. They find ways to come in, shut teams down defensively. Then they can pour points on offensively at times. I like them as a live dog in this game. The current line I'm showing is about 2.5 to 3. I would buy them up to 3.5. I would make that line plus 3.5. I like Texas A&M on the road against Mississippi State. I think they can got a shot in that game because Mississippi State, again, they've been a little inconsistent, 4-10 in the last 6. Haven't been great at home, and you're playing against a team like this that can definitely turn it on offense and defense. I like the dog in this game with Texas A&M. And another game I like, a couple of smaller teams, but I see the number on this game. I was scratching my head because I thought this line would be about 2 points higher than what it really was. And I thought if they were live, they would have been higher. But I like Loyola against Davidson. They make this line 2.5. Davidson at home -2.5. I figured if Davidson was right, based on what I look at, it would have been about 4.5. I think there's a reason why. Uh, they're not playing that well of late. They're 4-6, Davidson, their last 10. This Loyola team is a steady team. They've won their last 2 straight games in a row. They've been playing a little bit better. I think they're a live dog just based on the number on this game. I thought if Davidson was right, like I said, they'd be 4.5. They're only 2.5. I'm moving this game up a full point. I'm adjusting it to 3.5. I think this is the sleeper of the night. I like Loyola in this game as a dog. They may even win it outright, but I'll take the 3.5. I don't give up any points if I can grab them. But I like Loyola in this spot, plus 3.5 against Davidson. And one other one, I'll make it quick.
Great, beautiful.
Yeah, I like Iowa State. I think they're going to blow out this. They need a blowout game. They're playing against a team right now that's terrible in Colorado. 0-7 on the road this year. They don't win on the road. They're 1-9 their last 10. They play competitive, but I think Iowa State needs a big-time blowout game. The line on this game is like 18. I'm adjusting it to 17. I think Iowa State crushes them. 13-1 at home. They've won their last 3 straight games in a row. I just don't see how they match up in that building against Iowa State. So I'm taking Iowa State laying the 17. I'd buy it to 17 against Colorado. Those are my 3 for tonight.
Spoken as if he was Dick Hoops Weiss himself. Unbelievable job, Scotty M, with the research on these games. People want to take advantage of your wisdom, your team. They're out there. They're hawking all kinds of things, getting information together on NASCAR. I mean, all kinds of stuff. Where do they find you?
Very simple, guys. All you have to do is go to my official Instagram page, which is SM Sports Picks, Picks. We put it out there free all the time. If you're interested, you can DM me also. If you're interested in more exclusive games, I put out on a limited basis the bigger players that are more qualified. Obviously, I give free stuff all the time. Those games are done way in advance. We don't have the time frame to really put all the factors into those games because we put them up time restrictions on the videos on social media. But we do have a private service that we kind of release games within a few hours before game time. We really dig in on those. And if you're a more qualified player, shoot me a DM. If you're interested in that, I can personally get back to you. I'll respond back to you and let you know what the cost is for that. Other than that, we're good to go, Defo.
All right, sounds good. A lot of fun, a lot of interesting stuff on the horizon, including March Madness is around the corner and many, many things of a degenerate nature. Futures on the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah,
We have many avenues to explore here on Bury Your Bookie. Scotty, I'm glad you're a part of it. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Defo, you're the man. I'll see you next week.
All right, Scotty M, ladies and gentlemen. Doing a nice job there, college basketball. Liked a couple of dogs. Scotty M always likes to, get a little extra boost there on the point spread. Willing to pay a little bit of a price for that. So giving you Texas A&M and Loyola in their ball games. They're getting points and predicting an absolute clubbing of Seals like blowout in the Iowa State-Colorado game. Willing to go ahead and relinquish 17 to those stinking Buffaloes. All right. Thanks for being with us. A lot of fun for the people that bet online, Greenlight Ventures, and, of course, NoFilter.net. I'm Jeff DeForrest. We'll catch you tomorrow. Troy West is scheduled to join us here on the next edition of Bury Your Bookie.